This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. This is a very special edition because I'm John Shegerian. I'm here in Fresno, California, and we're so honored to have with us today Yaron Dycian. He's in Israel today, took the time to have this interview with us. Welcome to the Impact Podcast, Yaron.
Yeah, thanks, John. Great to be here. Really excited about it.
I'm really excited too because you're doing so many special things that are very important for our audience to hear about at Wint. And for our audience members who want to find everything Yaron's doing at Wint, you could go to www.wint.ai. Yaron, before we get talking about this important technology and what you're doing in water conservation, I would love you to share just your journey, where you grew up, where you got educated, and how you even started getting on this journey.
Yeah. Actually, I've had an interesting childhood. So born in Israel, was in Israel until the age of around 10, third grade. And then in third grade, my father was a doctor. So we flew over to New York, where he did his apprenticeship in New York, was in New York for a year, and then flew over to Long Beach, California, another year.
Wow.
And then flew back to Israel, finished my high school. Everybody here does military service. And I kind of did a pretty special program where I studied math and physics in the university. Always wanted to be a scientist. So I did that, then went into a lot of R&D, and many years of products and technology. This will be my seventh startup at this point. Did everything from e-commerce back in the early days to worked for the company that invented the Ethernet switch, agriculture, e-commerce, cybersecurity. And then, I came into this and I said, look, the world is running out of resources. And that was maybe 4 years ago when it was well known, but maybe not such a big deal. And I said, we got to do something. And, knowing technology, it solved, many of humanity's problems in the past. Let's see what we can apply here. And came into this, and I discovered an amazing world where technology is not used so much and can do a lot of good. So that's how I landed here.
Before we get talking more specifically about Wint, your water intelligence products, let's talk a little bit about Israel. One thing I don't think the media covers enough, especially here in the United States, is we're very American-centric. Oh, Silicon Valley, the hotbed of innovation, or Silicon Alley in New York, or San Diego with biotech. But talk a little bit about all the innovation and the creativity that comes out of Israel, because in my journey as an entrepreneur, I hear so much about innovation that's coming out of Israel, much more than most of the rest of the world. Can you share a little bit about your thoughts and your journey as an entrepreneur in Israel? And now you're, like you said, you're on your 6 or 7 startup, but this is sort of normal for Israel. Please share.
It really is, and it's funny, Israel likes to call itself startup nation. Seriously, it's a mentality here. And search Israel Startup Nation. Even, our Tour de France road cycling team is called Israel Startup Nation.
I didn't know that.
And, it goes to the level where you've got 2 kids in school and they'll talk and one of them will have an idea. And the slang here is, that's a great idea. It's a startup. That's what they would tell each other. So it's really deep in the culture, go find an idea, turn it into something, build it. If you build it, they will come. It's very strongly ingrained in the culture.
Just from a very young age, you're saying, from a young age.
Absolutely. They all think of startups. It's, even if they don't think of a startup, it's in the slang. Good idea equals startup. That's how it goes.
Wow. And you're saying it's a national pride issue to be called Startup Nation. It's so interesting. That is so wonderful. Talk a little bit about wind. So now you've had many successes in your rearview mirror, and you're thinking about now, as most of us get to a certain age, we start thinking about the legacy we leave behind, and also where we are as a world, as a planet, as climate change is become real, and the science is there. Talk a little bit about how you found this. You chose this part of the environmental intelligence pie to go attack. Why water, and why now?
So to be honest, this is always has some element of planning and some element of luck, as everything in life.
Of course.
So, I was thinking, what can I do as a startup that will change existing old industries? And, I used to do things for banking, for e-commerce. These are all, super high tech. They've got always the latest and greatest technologies.
Right.
But when you look at buildings, facilities, construction, industry, they're way back there. I've got customers who use equipment that was built in the 1960s. So that's not benefiting from everything that's happened over the past 60 years.
Right.
And I said to myself, that's an area where everything is old. And old means you contribute a lot. You can make a big difference.
Right.
And so I started looking around there. And then a friend of mine, came up with an introduction for me to somebody else, to my partner, who was going into it, and we spoke and decided to take it. So, combination of planning and luck. What can
Perfect.
you say?
And I'm so glad you said that, because so many successful entrepreneurs when they're talking about their success, they never give enough credit to luck. And you and I both know, when you get to a certain age and level of success, luck plays a large part on what comes together sometimes. So
Napoleon said it.
Yeah.
Napoleon said it. Don't bring me smart generals. Bring me generals with luck. So
I'm glad you said it. I'm so glad you said it too. I'm so glad you said it too, because not enough people say it. So now you and your partner come together to put together and to get WINT going. And WINT is water intelligence. Now, so explain what the problem is. Are we, as a world, wasting water on a regular basis? Not only as people in our households, but also when it comes, like you said, to industrial office buildings and industrial facilities. Is water wasting part of all of our cultures around the world?
Oh my God, you wouldn't even believe it. And I'll get down to examples, but
yeah,
here's the thing. Water for many, many years has been treated as a commodity, right? You want water, take water. It's cheap, it's easy, it's everywhere. Never mind, And so nothing has really been built to conserve water. Now, we've got the statistics. We go into buildings, we put in our systems, and we consistently see waste of about 25%. 25% of the water that goes into a building is waste. Now, there's no magic about this waste. You won't find little gremlins stealing the water. You won't find aliens stealing them. It's your toilet's leaking, your taps are not well closed, your irrigation is misconfigured, your HVAC system is losing enormous amounts of water to evaporation, and so on and so forth. It's just endless. It's very difficult to find. These are practical day-to-day problems. How do you find all those leaky toilets? How do you know when the irrigation is misconfigured? It just happens. Nobody notices. There's nothing monitoring it. Impossible to find. The result, on average, 25%. In extreme cases, 70% of water going into a building gets wasted.
So wait a second. You just mentioned 5 or 6 things: toilets, water, irrigation, sinks, HVAC. So if we think about it as a boat, it's leaking from so many different areas. It's incredible. So when you go in, there's so many opportunities to create a savings, you're saying, and that's what your intelligence does. Explain, for instance, I own a factory with 1,000 workers. How do you come in and do this assessment? How does your technology take me from 1960, like you said, to 2022?
Yeah. So we will monitor the water flows in your equipment, on your pipes, wherever it's relevant. So we'll kind of do a mapping of where we need to monitor water. We'll put in standard, absolutely off-the-shelf water flow meters, and we will read them at very high frequencies. So we need that high time resolution. So maybe 10, 100 milliseconds. And then we look at that flow. We look at this flow and we apply a lot of artificial intelligence, signal processing, machine learning to it. And you can think of a water flow pattern. If you think of the flow rate over time, that creates a signal. It's a graph, right? It's a time graph. You look at this graph and it has a pattern, and you can learn this pattern. And using the right technologies, identify what is good and what is bad in that pattern, what is anomalous, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And when you apply it to different use cases, from just your standard office building floor or your manufacturing facility that manufactures tons and tons of whatever, you can identify the anomalies. And when you identify the anomalies, you can pinpoint them. You can't always pinpoint them to the exact specific location, but you can give a strong enough hint that anybody who knows that place within 5 minutes will identify the source. And it's a combination of that set of insights that we bring with the artificial intelligence and the signal processing and machine learning that does the job.
Had you applied in your other entrepreneurial ventures, Yaron, did you apply artificial intelligence before, so you already had an understanding of it? Or was this new, to take a problem and to apply artificial intelligence? Was this a new world for you as well?
Actually, AI, this is the first time I'm doing AI.
Really? No kidding. That's so interesting. Okay, so now you come into a building, you apply your technology. So then how does the remedy start to happen? Do you go in then and bring in a group of specialists who then go in and remedy the problems you found to create the savings? Or how does the fix actually happen then?
So the fix happens in two ways. The first is, where applicable, we can also deploy automatic valves. If you've got something that's leaking horribly, in COVID it was very apparent. Irrigation system leaking, everybody's stuck at home. We shut off the valve remotely, the system does it automatically. By the way, water is also hugely damaging with extremely negative environmental consequences. You blow a pipe on the 20th floor, it destroys everything down to the ground. The carbon impact of emptying all of that, destroyed stuff is very big, let alone the financial damage. So, a valve will solve that. In other cases, it's not really an expert. All you need is, you've got a toilet leaking on the 10th floor. You send the maintenance guy looking for it, and it's an expert, to that level. Or if it's a production line, they know their line. You tell them, here's the symptom, here's where it's coming from, here are the 3 places to look for. That's what they do for a living. So the staff on site always knows, based on the feedback that we provide, where to find the problem.
Comparatively speaking, I assume there's other companies that were doing what you're doing now before, but applying AI and applying machine learning to it gives you an edge. How is that giving you an edge? And where are you in terms of what's the total addressable market for you with regards to what you're trying to accomplish?
Okay, so these are 2 questions. Let me start with the first.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, first question is, how does AI give us an advantage?
Yeah.
And look, we are in computer terminology, we are an anomaly detection system, right? You look for, you train yourself on what's normal, and then you identify the anomalies. And anomaly, the parameters that define the success of an anomaly detection system are 2. Your true detection ratios, which means if there's a problem, what's the likelihood that you'll detect it? You want to be at 100% there, but nobody ever is in any system whatsoever.
Right.
Including ICBM detection. And on the flip side, you want 0 false positives. You don't want to bug the team on the ground with false alerts where they're running around and there's nothing wrong, because they'll hate you pretty soon and you'll get kicked out the door.
Right.
Now, that's a balance. And it got to certain levels of if you ask me, insufficient quality before AI was around. And when we started employing our AI and machine learning, we saw a huge jump in the performance of these things. So that's the difference. We provide better detection and less false alerts in dramatic numbers.
For someone who's not who hasn't applied AI the way you have, does the AI that you have created here to this problem specifically, does it continually learn? So every time you go to a new building and you're actually applying more knowledge now to the next building and continuing to increase the performance and the results from job to job as you evolve as a company?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great. That is just wonderful. So let's go to the second question. How big could this be? Because this sounds like a problem that obviously is not systemic just to Israel, that this is a worldwide problem, and you're really solving something that's really big here. How big can your company grow in terms of solving this big problem of water conservation and water savings?
So the problem is everywhere. We've got customers, from the US West Coast all the way, the Far East, and everything in between, and Europe and whatnot. Everybody's buildings is doing the same stuff. And, how big is the market? Take a look around. Every building out there, every apartment out there, every manufacturing facility out there is wasting 25% of the water that goes in. Now, Lake Mead is drying up. How are they going to bring water to Las Vegas or Los Angeles in 15 years? Nobody knows, right? You look at some of the movies online about this, and CNN, CNBC, whatever. I mean, everybody's freaking out. The problem's everywhere. London is going to become a water-stressed area. So, the market is big.
Right.
So the question, the market is pretty big.
So and I know you're a very humble guy, Yaron. So I'm going to just say some of the names: Microsoft, Google, Dell, HP. They use your technologies. Obviously, to impress those kind of brands and many others, you're doing something super right. So now you and your partner, you're entrepreneurs. So part of the balancing act of an entrepreneur is you have a total addressable market that's massive, obviously. And it's important that it's solved and that these issues are fixed. How do you break down? Because every company has a version of resources or limited resources in terms of how to attack their total addressable market. So how do you go and see the world and carve it up in terms of sequentially and efficiently, while you manage your resources, going to attack that total addressable market?
That's a very good question. And, the first and probably most important segmentation you do is geographical.
Okay.
So, we don't sell worldwide. We do have systems installed worldwide that we're taken there by partners, or, if we've got a multinational who's using us in one place, there are other facilities want it. But, our focus currently is US, UK is number one in Europe, and a couple of other European countries is secondary, and Israel, of course, that's our home base.
Right.
Beyond that, we're carefully opportunistic. We're not making sales and marketing efforts right now, but that'll come with the right partner. That'll come. Got
it. With regards, you mentioned, Lake Mead. You mentioned Las Vegas. You mentioned London. Listen, I'm sitting in Fresno, California. California's had a water problem a long time, and it's getting worse, as you point out. This is serious. Is this something is this a technology that eventually homeowners are going to be able to leverage and use to help save water in their homes as well?
Absolutely, yes. We're installed. So, right now, as part of that, focus, we are providing solutions to homeowners, but mostly through homeowner associations or, building management companies for the relatively higher end, simply because we can't, pick up the whole market. But we've got some of London's fanciest apartments. I'm talking, $20 million apartments. They're pretty nice. I was out there actually last week.
Wow.
They're using us. They're using us both to conserve water and to prevent water damage, which is horrific in apartments as well. So
what I love is also you've embedded yourself, and I want you to explain it more, with CBRE and JLL, two of the biggest facility and property management companies in the world. What does that mean for the properties that they manage?
Both of these companies and many other facility management companies want to bring their customers best of breed advanced solutions, and everybody cares about sustainability today.
Right.
I think COP26, seriously, I saw a huge change in the way people perceive sustainability and their desire to invest in it. So, companies like this who manage for their customers, properties of endless, square footage, can bring these technologies to their customers and make them more sustainable and more immune to the damage of water leaks in buildings.
Let's talk about that COP26. You bring up a great point, because a lot of people came out with lofty goals, but it seemed a little bit like disingenuous, kicking the can down the street. What I mean by that is when people came out and said, we're going to be net zero by 2050. Well, wait a second. As you point out, Yaron, we have problems today in terms of water and other conservation and carbon emissions and things of that such. So if I'm a building and I use your technology, you're going to be able to tell me how much I was wasting before I used your technology, how much I'm saving now, and I'll be able to report that to my shareholders and other constituents as well.
Oh, of course. We work with some of the names you mentioned before. They're chief sustainability officers, and this is pretty new as well, right? 3 years ago, you didn't have chief sustainability officers.
Right,
now
right.
Everybody has, which is great, and I mean that's part of that movement. Anyway, they look at our data, and we provide them reports on how much water we save them every year. We actually, with some of them, we do it quarterly, and they get these reports through dashboards, through our customer success team, and they know I just saved, 500 million gallons this year in my facilities. Wow. Now, here's another thing. So, needless to say, after half an hour of speaking, how important water sustainability is. But here's the thing: water has a huge carbon impact. Yeah. So, when you drink that much water, you are having someone pull it out of the ground, treat it, transfer it, sometimes hundreds of miles away, pull it up the building into the umpteenth floor if you're on a high floor.
Right.
Sometimes it's desalinated, which is extremely energy intensive. And then you drink the water, or you use it. Well, if you drink it, not. But if you use it and it goes back into the sewage, then it gets transferred to the sewage, which is more energy. And then it gets treated. And through the treatment, which takes up energy, you're actually releasing not carbon, but greenhouse gases. So you're releasing methane, and you're releasing sulfur dioxide. So every cubic meter of water that you use emits, depending on the specific processes and distance and whatnot, every cubic meter is about 30 to 40 pounds of carbon emissions.
So the carbon footprint issue around water and water wasting and water conservation is also massive. In terms of, if we're going to really get to net zero, as nations go, as corporations go, as other organizations go, and cities and municipalities go, we've got to get this water thing balanced out, so we're not wasting at least 25% in everywhere we operate.
In fact, you said municipalities, so some interesting statistics.
Yeah.
About 13% of U.S. electricity goes into water. The whole water process, 13% of electricity in the U.S. Some municipalities, 70% of their electricity usage goes to water. 70% in some municipalities. So now think you're going to cut down water waste in buildings by 25%. What does that mean to the municipality? You just cut down about 20% of your electricity bills for the municipality. Forget all the others, all the other benefits.
Right.
It's just, pure cost.
You mentioned what we just saw over at the big carbon conference and in Europe. Talk a little bit about the investment community. It's my impression that the institutional investors throughout Asia, Europe, and the United States are very interested in investing in circular economy and ESG technologies and companies that support good ESG and circular economy behavior. What's your thoughts on that? And is that going to help fuel the growth of your company, Win?
So I totally agree. I think it's another really interesting trend, right? Like we did not have chief sustainability officers 3 years ago.
Right.
We did not see that much sustainability investment even a year and a half ago.
Right.
This is flipped. It's crazy. It is flipped. Every generic venture capital now wants to put in money into sustainability. And there are I can't even keep count of the number of funds that are dedicated to sustainability and ESG. So, the world has changed in that respect. And, with all the cynicism about COP26 and the challenges they have, this is super difficult, right? You're asking countries to make massive changes. The mind shift is going to be, super, super impactful, I think. Companies are now really doing it. They used to talk and it was lip service 3 years ago. They're putting money into it and they're investing, and this will change the world.
Will that help? Will all the interest, like you said, of just like the last 18 months or so, and I know it's going to continue in the years ahead, it's not going away anytime soon. Will that help fuel the growth of your company faster than you even imagined 3 years ago?
I believe yes, and I'm very hopeful because look, now people are more interested in buying our products. They have the drive to do that. It's as simple as that. And investors are more interested in investing in this kind of technology. So we have to say yes, right?
Right. And do you have offices around the world, or are they mostly just in Israel right now?
Israel, US, and London is where we have permanent offices.
You're a young guy still, and you've already done 6 or 7 ventures. Is this the last big one, or is this just a part of the longer journey for Yaron Dycian?
I certainly hope it's not the last one, because that's what I like doing, finding a problem. Nobody solved it before. It's tough. It's difficult, but you're carving your own way. You're making things up as you go, and you help the world in some way. I sure hope not.
I love what you're doing. I so love what I want to give you the last word before we sign off for today, but I'm going to have you back to continue this important journey about water intelligence, water conservation, and wind, your great technology. Please, I want to give you the last word before we have to say goodbye just for today.
Yeah, let's make this a better world is all I can say. Time's up. We are counting a time now, and I think whatever people do, this should be. It's next generations. It's our world. It's our grandchildren's world. Let's take care of it.
Yaron, you're the reason we do this show. We don't take any advertising for it. We've built up a big audience over 14 years. And I'm just grateful to you for making the world a better place, a greener place, a more sustainable place. For people that want to find Yaron, his partner, and his colleagues, and all the great stuff they're doing at WINT, please go to www.wint.ai. We're thankful for you. I can't wait to have you back on to continue this journey and continued success. Yaron Dycian.
Thanks a lot, John. Great being on the show. Had a great time. Appreciate it.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent, for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com.